The departure. The massive amphitheater of the Galactic Concordat hummed with the voices of 100 different species. Floating translators darted through the air like mechanical fireflies, converting the cacophony of clicks, whistles, and rumbles into universally understood speech. At the center of it all stood Commander Elena Reyes, Earth's chief diplomat, her dark eyes scanning the alien faces that surrounded her. For 50 years, humanity had been the newcomers to the galactic stage. 50 years of being patronized, underestimated, and treated like children who had stumbled upon their parents' tools. The Concordat, a coalition of the 17 most advanced species in the known galaxy, had graciously allowed humans limited access to trade routes, technology, and colonization rights, all while keeping the most vital secrets of the universe tantalizingly out of reach. Today, that was supposed to change. Today was the day humanity would finally be granted full membership in the Concordat. Representatives of Earth, began Coordinator Thrix, the insectoid leader of the Concordat's council. Its mandibles clicked rhythmically as translator drones converted its speech. We have reviewed your application for full membership status with great consideration. Elena felt her aide, Dr. Marcus Way, shift nervously beside her. The hesitation in the coordinator's voice did not bode well. After much deliberation, Thrix continued, we have determined that humanity is not yet ready for the responsibilities of full membership. A murmur rippled through the human delegation. Elena maintained her diplomatic composure, though her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Instead, Thrix's compound eyes gleamed under the amphitheater's lights. We propose a new arrangement. The Concordat will establish oversight committees on each of your colony worlds. These committees will help guide human development along more appropriate paths. Appropriate paths, Elena repeated, her voice carefully neutral. Could you elaborate, Coordinator? The Zith representative, a gelatinous being that shimmered with bioluminescent patterns, floated forward. Humans develop technology too rapidly and with insufficient caution. Your history is marked by weaponizing scientific discoveries almost immediately. The oversight committees would ensure that human innovation proceeds in harmony with Concordat values. Marcus passed Elena a datapad. She glanced down to see his hastily typed message. This is colonization, not partnership. Elena nodded slightly. What other terms accompany this proposal? The Dralaxian ambassador, his scaled skin rippling with blues and greens, stepped forward. Human military capacity would be reduced by 70%. Your FTL expansion would be limited to systems already colonized. Additionally, all human AI research would be permanently discontinued. A cold silence fell over the human delegation. These weren't terms for partnership. They were demands for surrender. How many other species have been required to accept such terms before admission? Elena asked. Your case is unique, replied Thrix. No other species has exhibited your particular combination of rapid technological advancement and historical propensity for conflict. Elena looked around the chamber, seeking any sign of support from the other representatives. She found none. This wasn't a negotiation. It was an ultimatum that had been decided long before the humans had entered the room. The Concordat expects your answer within one standard rotation, Thrix concluded. We trust you will see the wisdom in our guidance. The journey back to the human embassy was silent. Elena's team knew what was at stake. Acceptance meant the effective end of human independence. Refusal meant isolation from the galactic community. No more access to alien technology, interstellar trade, or protection from the cosmic threats that lurked in the darkness between stars. In the embassy's secure conference room, the debate raged for hours. Some argued for reluctant acceptance, followed by quiet resistance. Others insisted that humanity should call the Concordat's bluff. Surely they wouldn't actually cut off Earth completely. They've been planning this for years, Elena finally said, silencing the room. Every technology they've shared has had a hidden dependency. Every treaty has contained subtle language that they're now exploiting. They don't want partners. They want subjects. President Alvarez's hologram flickered in the center of the table. Commander Reyes, I've consulted with the United Earth Council. We are authorized to make a counterproposal, but not to accept these terms as presented. Elena nodded. With respect, Madam President, I don't believe any counterproposal will be considered. This isn't a negotiation. It's a foregone conclusion. They expect us to either submit or beg for compromise. Then what do you recommend? Asked Alvarez. Elena took a deep breath. We walk away. Completely. The silence that followed was deafening. You can't be serious. Breathe, Marcus. We depend on Concordat technology for everything from our medical systems to our FTL drives. Do we? Elena challenged. Or have we been led to believe that we do? How much of what they've given us have we actually reverse-engineered? How much could we reproduce on our own if we had to? That would take decades, argued Admiral Chen, the military representative. Then we'd better get started, Elena replied firmly, because the alternative is becoming a client species forever. The next morning, Elena Reyes stood once more in the center of the Concordat chamber. This time, she stood alone. The people of Earth have considered your proposal, she began, her voice carrying clearly throughout the amphitheater. We have concluded that the terms are unacceptable. Murmurs of surprise echoed through the chamber. Clearly, this was not the response they had anticipated. We are prepared to offer modifications that will, began Thrix. No, Elena interrupted, a diplomatic taboo that sent shockwaves through the assembly. There will be no counterproposal. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from all treaties, trade agreements, and diplomatic relations with the Galactic Concordat and its member species. The chamber erupted in chaos. Translator drones zoomed frantically between outraged delegates. The Dralaxian representative's scales flashed crimson with anger. This is madness, hissed the Zith delegate, its bioluminescence pulsing with agitation. You cannot survive without the Concordat. Elena allowed herself a small smile. Perhaps that is what you need to believe. Nevertheless, our decision is made. Earth will recall all diplomatic personnel and merchant vessels from Concordat space within 10 standard days. We expect the same courtesy from your representatives on our worlds. You doom your species to isolation and stagnation, Frix declared, its mandibles clicking furiously. Elena turned to leave but paused at the chamber's threshold. One final thing, Coordinator. When you realize your mistake, and you will, know that our terms for re-engagement will be different than they are today. With that, she walked out, the massive doors closing behind her with a resonant thud that echoed through the stunned silence. The exodus was surprisingly orderly. Human ships across the galaxy received the coded recall message and began immediate returns to Earth-controlled space. Concordat officials, caught off guard by humanity's decisive action, scrambled to adapt. Many expected the humans to reverse course within weeks when the realities of isolation set in. Surely they would come crawling back once their medical systems failed without Zith biotechnology, or when their FTL drives degraded without Dralaxian maintenance. But the weeks turned to months, and the humans did not return. In the great shipyards orbiting Mars, engineers worked feverishly to deconstruct and understand alien technology before it failed. On Earth, vast resources were poured into developing indigenous alternatives to Concordat systems. The colonies, initially panicked at the prospect of isolation, rallied around a new spirit of human self-sufficiency. Dr. Amara Singh, once a minor researcher in a Concordat-supervised laboratory, now led Earth's most critical project. In her underground facility, she and her team labored to create a purely human version of FTL technology. The Concordat drives use exotic matter that only they can produce, she explained to Elena during an inspection. But we've been analyzing the quantum interactions for years. We think there's another approach, less efficient, perhaps, but entirely within our production capabilities. Similar breakthroughs were happening across human space. Freed from Concordat restrictions and oversight, Human innovation exploded at a pace that would have horrified the aliens who sought to contain it. Systems that the Concordat had insisted required their unique materials or expertise were replicated, often improved, using human-developed alternatives. Meanwhile, in the wider galaxy, the Concordat was discovering an uncomfortable truth. They had become more dependent on humans than they had realized. Human merchants had specialized in trading between systems and species that otherwise avoided each other. Human diplomats had often smoothed relations between traditional rivals. Human adaptability had made them valuable problem solvers throughout Concordat space. 6 months after the break, the Pylorian epidemic erupted on 3 Concordat worlds simultaneously. The Zith, masters of biotechnology, struggled to contain it. The disease mutated too quickly, adapting to each treatment almost immediately. "We need the humans," admitted the Zith delegate in a closed council session. Their medical researchers had unusual approaches to viral mutation. "Different from our methods, but effective." "Impossible," declared Thrix. "We will solve this ourselves." But as the epidemic spread to 7 worlds, then 12, the coordinator's confidence began to waver. On the frontier regions, pirates and marauders who had long been deterred by human patrol vessels grew bold. Shipping lanes once considered secure saw a spike in raids. The Dralaxians, responsible for Concordat security, found themselves stretched thin without their human auxiliaries. And in the economic hubs, the absence of human traders led to unexpected shortages and market instabilities. Specialized human luxury goods, particularly their art, music, and culinary creations, became black market sensations, commanding absurd prices. As the first year of separation neared its end, the Concordat faced an uncomfortable truth. The humans were not only surviving without them, but possibly thriving. And the reverse was not true. In a secure facility beneath the Himalayan mountains, Alina Reyes received a priority communication from the Orbital Defense Network. A single Concordat vessel had appeared at the edge of the solar system, broadcasting on all frequencies. Its message was simple: "We wish to talk." Alina allowed herself a small smile as she authorized the ship's approach to Earth. The Concordat had made their first move, just as she had predicted. Humanity had walked away from the table. Now, they would return on their own terms. The return. The Concordat diplomatic vessel drifted in Earth orbit, its crystalline hull refracting sunlight in prismatic patterns across space. Inside, Thrix shuffled uncomfortably in the human design chair. 2 standard years had passed since humanity had walked away from the galactic community, and the situation had deteriorated far beyond what any Concordat model had predicted. "Coordinator, we're receiving transmission clearance," reported the Zith communications officer, its translucent body pulsing with nervous light patterns. Thrix's compound eyes fixed on the view screen as it resolved to show Alina Reyes, now Admiral Reyes, according to human communications, seated in what appeared to be a completely redesigned command center. Gone were the familiar Concordat information displays and control systems that had been standard in all human facilities. In their place were interfaces of purely human design. "Coordinator Thrix," Alina greeted, her expression professionally neutral. "This is unexpected." "Admiral Reyes," Thrix began, mandibles clicking in the insectoid equivalent of a forced smile. "The Concordat extends greetings to Earth and its colonies." "Greetings received," Alina replied. "I assume you have a purpose for entering restricted space." Restricted space. The terminology wasn't lost on Thrix. 2 years ago, humans had needed Concordat permission to designate their own territorial boundaries. Now they were enforcing them. "We wish to discuss a mutually beneficial restoration of relations," Thrix stated, trying to maintain the upper hand in the conversation. "Recent developments suggest that limited cooperation could serve both our interests." Alina's expression didn't change. "I see. And what developments might those be?" The Dralaxian security chief, standing behind Thrix, shifted uneasily. The humans were supposed to be desperate by now, eager for any opening to rejoin the galactic community. This cool confidence was unsettling. Perhaps we could discuss this in person, Fricks suggested. Our vessel carries representatives from the High Council empowered to negotiate new terms. Elena consulted briefly with someone off-screen before responding. Very well. You may dock at Tranquility Station. A delegation will meet you there in 6 hours. Please limit your party to 5 representatives. The transmission ended before Fricks could respond. They're dictating terms to us now, hissed the Dralaxian in disbelief. Fricks's antennae twitched with irritation. They're bluffing. Once we're face to face, we'll see how well they've actually managed without Concordat technology. Their confidence will crumble when we offer to restore their access to essential resources. 6 hours later, the Concordat delegation stepped through the airlock into Tranquility Station. What they found left them momentarily speechless. The station, they remembered, had been a modest outpost built largely with Concordat components and designs. What greeted them now was an entirely rebuilt facility, its architecture and technology purely human in origin. Personnel moved purposefully through wide corridors that hummed with activity. Through massive viewports, they could see a shipyard where vessels of unfamiliar design were under construction. Welcome to Tranquility Station, greeted a young human officer. Admiral Rise is waiting in the conference facility. As they followed their guide, the Zith representative floated closer to Fricks. These systems, it whispered, bioluminescent patterns conveying concern. They're not using any of our biomural interfaces. The Dralaxian security chief nodded grimly. And those ships, no Dralaxian hull configurations or propulsion signatures. Fricks felt a creeping unease. The humans weren't merely surviving isolation. They had used it to forge their own path entirely. The conference room offered a spectacular view of Earth below. Elena Reyes stood as they entered, flanked by what appeared to be military and scientific advisors. Fricks noted with concern that none of them wore the neural assistants that had been standard for human officials during Concordat relations. Coordinator Fricks, welcome to Earth space, Elena said. Please, be seated. Formal introductions were made, and refreshments were served. Human beverages for the visitors capable of consuming them, and appropriate alternatives for those with different biological needs. The hospitality was impeccable, but the underlying message was clear. We prepared for you. You need us more than we need you. I must admit, Fricks began, we are surprised by what we've seen. You appear to have adapted to independence remarkably well. Elena smiled slightly. Adaptation is what humans do best, Coordinator. Now, you mentioned recent developments that warrant renewed relations. Fricks's mandibles tightened, a sign of discomfort not lost on the humans who had studied Concordat species. Several situations have arisen where human expertise would be valuable. The Pylorian epidemic, stated Dr. Sophia Chen, Earth's chief medical officer. We've monitored its spread through analysis of communication patterns across Concordat space. 17 worlds affected now, correct? The Zith representative's bioluminescence flared with surprise. How could you possibly know? We've maintained observation capabilities, Elena said simply. And we've continued to study diseases similar to the Pylorian pathogen, despite our separation. Then you have a cure? Asked Fricks, unable to mask the desperate hope in its voice. We have several promising approaches, Dr. Chen replied carefully. But that's just one issue facing the Concordat, isn't it? The Dralaxian security chief leaned forward. The frontier regions have become unstable. Raiders target shipping lanes once secured by joint patrols. And the Veil Nebula trade routes have collapsed without human intermediaries, added the Acadian representative, speaking for the first time. 3 systems face resource shortages. Elena nodded. We've been aware of these developments. The question is, what are you proposing? Fricks placed a crystalline data device on the table. A new agreement. Humans would return to Concordat space with special autonomous status. Trade would resume. Your medical experts would assist with the epidemic. In exchange, you would regain access to Concordat technology and protection. For a long moment, Elena simply looked at the device without touching it. Finally, she spoke. 2 years ago, you offered terms that would have reduced humanity to a supervised, subordinate species. What makes you think we would now accept merely an autonomous status in your hierarchy? You've done well in isolation, Admiral, Fricks conceded, but there are realities you cannot overcome alone. Deep space exploration requires Zith biotechnology for life support. Advanced computation needs Akkadian quantum crystals. Certain rare elements for your technology can only be found in Concordat-controlled systems. Elena exchanged glances with her team before responding. Perhaps it's time we showed you something. The human delegation led the Concordat representatives through the station to a secure observation deck. As the blast shields retracted, a massive construction became visible in orbit around Earth's moon. This, Elena explained, is the Horizon Gate. Even without detailed scans, the Concordat delegates recognized the impossible. It was a jump gate, a technology that the Concordat had insisted was centuries beyond human capability to develop independently. "That's not possible," whispered the Akkadian, its crystalline form vibrating with shock. "The quantum calculations alone would require—" "We took a different approach," interrupted Dr. Wei, now Earth's Director of Advanced Physics. "Instead of following Concordat methodologies, we explored alternatives. Our gate uses principles similar to your technology, but implemented through entirely human-developed science. It becomes operational next month," Elena added. "Our first independent connection will link Earth to Proxima Centauri, bypassing traditional FTL travel entirely." The implication was staggering. With such technology, humans would no longer need Concordat-controlled hyperspace lanes. They could create their own network, potentially even offering alternative routes to species chafing under Concordat restrictions. "You've been busy," Fricks stated flatly. "Necessity is the mother of invention," Elena replied. "When you forced us to rely entirely on ourselves, you eliminated the technological dependencies you had carefully cultivated. Every problem became an opportunity to develop our own solutions." As they returned to the conference room, the mood had shifted palpably. The Concordat delegation now understood that they were not there to graciously remit humans to the galactic community. They were there to negotiate with an emerging power. "Your terms, Admiral," Fricks said simply. Elena activated a holographic display. "Equal status in all Concordat deliberations. Unrestricted access to all Concordat scientific databases. A complete knowledge exchange. Independent colonization rights. And a formal acknowledgement that humanity was wrongfully subjected to discriminatory treatment." "This is unprecedented," protested the Dralaxian. No species has ever walked away from the Concordat and thrived," Elena interrupted. "Yet here we are. These terms are non-negotiable for preliminary re-engagement. Further details can be arranged after these principles are accepted." Fricks conferred quietly with the delegation before responding. "We cannot authorize such terms immediately. The full council must convene." "Of course," Elena said smoothly. "You have 3 standard days to present our terms to the council. During that time, as a gesture of good faith, Dr. Chen will provide preliminary research that may help with the initial stages of the Pylorian outbreak." The message was clear. Humans were willing to help, but they would no longer be taken for granted. 3 days later, the Concordat vessel departed Earth orbit with a data core of medical research and a diplomatic agreement unlike any in galactic history. For the first time, the Concordat had been forced to treat a younger species as a genuine equal. As the ship disappeared into FTL, Elena stood in her office overlooking the night side of Earth, city lights twinkling below like earthbound stars. "They accepted everything," marveled Marcus Way, hardly believing the outcome. "They had no choice," Elena replied. "The Concordat built its power on technological superiority and careful control of its member species. We showed them another path is possible." "What happens now?" asked Dr. Chen. "Will other species follow our example?" Elena smiled. "That's what they're afraid of. The Leviathans and the Solari, have already sent unofficial communications expressing interest in our jump gate technology. The galaxy is changing, Sophia. Marcus looked troubled. The Concordat ruled for 10,000 years because they maintained stability. What we've done, breaking away, developing independently, it changes everything. Yes, Alina agreed, turning from the window to face her colleagues. Everything changes. But isn't that what humans do best? We adapt. We innovate. We transform. She gestured to the holographic display, showing the horizon gate nearing completion. We didn't just build new technology during our isolation. We built a new paradigm. The era of being junior partners in the galaxy is over. In the depths of space, the Concordat vessel accelerated toward the nearest traditional jump point. On board, Fricks composed the official report for the High Council. The wording would need to be careful, diplomatic. How does one explain that the species they had dismissed as barely worth considering had fundamentally altered the balance of power in the galaxy? The truth was simple, though Fricks would never include it in any official communication. Humanity had not needed the Concordat. The Concordat, it turned out, had needed humanity, their adaptability, their innovation, their unique perspective. And in trying to control these qualities, they had very nearly lost access to them forever. As stars streaked past the viewport, Fricks contemplated the future. A galaxy where humans stood as equals, where their unconventional approaches and rapid innovation would influence Concordat policy, where other species might look to Earth's example and question long-established hierarchies. It would be chaotic, unpredictable, challenging. All the things the Concordat had spent millennia trying to prevent. Yet somehow, faced with human determination and the glimpse of their potential, Fricks found itself anticipating this new era with something almost like excitement. Humans had walked away. Now the galaxy would never be the same.